This is the story of Saraki Sanosuke, a second-year student currently losing a battle against adulthood. He hasn't paid 3 months' rent, and his landlord finally explodes, ordering him to vacate immediately. Saraki tries to plead for 1 more month, but the landlord is done negotiating and demands the full payment on the spot. Technically, Awkward Chad did have the money until yesterday. The problem is that he found a first edition of No Longer Human at a used bookstore and made a financially irresponsible but emotionally powerful decision. The landlord has zero appreciation for literary priorities and throws him out, confiscating all valuable belongings, including his beloved books, as rent collateral. Saraki barely escapes with the clothes on his back, and even those are almost taken. Now sitting on empty ground in newly bought cheap clothes, he realizes he has officially hit rock bottom. He lets out a dry laugh, but his brain spirals into worst-case scenarios. His phone battery is on the verge of dying, and desperation kicks in. He just needs a place to stay for 2 or 3 days. Anyone will do. College friends, high school friends, humanity in general. He opens his graduation album like it's a survival guide and starts calling old friends. One by one, they respond with suspicion, as if he's a scammer instead of someone who once shared lunch with them. Saraki's faith in best friends forever crumbles in real time. Just when he's about to give up, he remembers Kobachi Koharu, a top student in their grade and a certified genius on a national level. Even in high school, she was known as a scientist, discovered a new supernova, published a paper in science, and collected 2 gold medals at the International Physics and Chemistry Olympiads, like they were participation trophies. Saraki could barely understand her research back then, though he remembers thinking it looked impressive. Relying on someone like her makes him feel like a complete freeloader, but at this point, pride is a luxury item. He wonders what she's doing now, probably overseas or at some elite university. Meanwhile, our boy is just trying to secure a couch and survive the week. Suddenly, his dying phone decides to create drama and starts ringing. It's Ayaha, his cousin, a former senior, and a professional menace. She already knows he's struggling, which means the family gossip network is working at light speed. Saraki corrects her title out of habit, reminding her she's technically a teacher now and not just his older cousin. But then she drops something unexpected. She's willing to help him find a place to stay. Our MC's survival instincts immediately reboot. Gratitude floods in. He's ready to agree to anything as long as it doesn't involve prison time. Unfortunately, Ayaha adds conditions. Of course there are conditions. There always are. She mentions his good grades and suggests he come teach at her workplace for a while. Brook Boy hears the teacher and instantly jumps to illegal solutions. Ayaha shuts that down before he can dig his own grave. Crime is not part of the job description. Instead, she tells him to meet her at their alma mater the next day. As the call ends, Saraki processes the situation. A strange condition, sure, but a roof is a roof. The next day, he stands in front of his former school wearing clothes that scream budget crisis. Students whisper with suspicion. Saraki internally melts from embarrassment, but then overhears someone say he looks cool. Confidence shoots up for exactly 3 seconds. He reminds himself that starting today, he's a teacher. Professional, polite, and approachable. He turns to greet the students with what he believes is responsible adult energy. The result is instant panic. The students assume he's suspicious and escalate the situation like he's a villain in disguise. Before things spiral further, a staff member informs him he's already been expected and directs him to the assigned classroom. Saraki makes his way to the multi-use room and steps inside. The school scientist is sitting there casually, eating a sandwich like she owns the timeline. The genius, the supernova discovering, gold medal collecting, nationally certified brain legend. Saraki's mind short-circuits. What is she doing here? He introduces himself awkwardly, mentioning they were in the same third-year class. Doubt creeps in immediately. Someone operating on her intellectual altitude probably doesn't remember background characters. Calling out her name so suddenly might have startled her. And just like that, the reunion arc begins. Kobachi looks at him awkwardly, and she knows who he is. Mr. Homeless lights up as he did not expect to be remembered by someone operating on genius difficulty mode. She asks if he's here about the part-time job. He confirms. She admits she didn't think he would actually show up. Saraki radiates smug survival energy for a second and wonders if she's also working part-time. She hesitates, asks him to wait, and says she'll call the teacher. MC reassures himself that she hasn't changed at all, still awkward and still distant. He glances at her uniform, and something feels off. It doesn't sit right in his brain. In his memories, Kobachi used to be the untouchable genius of their class. Now they're both 20 and adults, technically. He starts noticing her wearing the uniform. Kobachi grows visibly uncomfortable and asks him not to stare too much. Before he can process further, the door bursts open and Ayaha storms in late as always. She brushes off the delay and jumps straight into explaining the setup. Sanosuke will be teaching Japanese and social studies, the subjects that require reading comprehension and basic civilization awareness. He asks the critical question, who exactly are the students? Ayaha points directly at Kobachi. Saraki's brain immediately disconnects from reality as a system error. Kobachi protests in a panic, arguing that letting an outsider teach her is reckless. She even tries to bribe the teacher with sweets in desperation. Ayaha shuts that down instantly, insisting this is for Kobachi's own good, without negotiations and escape routes. Then comes the sentence that flips Saraki's entire understanding of reality. Kobachi is still a high school student. He genuinely cannot compute. She couldn't graduate and had to repeat a year. This is now her 5th year in high school. Our lad internally screams. The Kobachi he remembers was the best student in school, national-level genius, award collector, science prodigy. How does someone like that repeat a year? Ayaha explains calmly. Kobachi's science grades are legendary, but in liberal arts, total disaster. She keeps failing every test, even the makeup classes, and when confronted, she claims her research is at a crucial stage and simply doesn't attend. Hence, she's 20 years old and still in high school. Poor Saraki struggles to process the words, but none of it aligns. Ayaha delivers the final mission objective. He has 1 year to get Kobachi Koharu to graduate. Saraki's brain fully powers down. The question echoes in his skull. Who is going to teach Kobachi-san? Then the horrifying realization dawns. It's him. He is the one assigned to teach the national-level genius who once made the rest of the class feel like background extras. Kobachi asks if the teacher could continue guiding her this year instead. Ayaha immediately refuses, reminding everyone how exhausting last year was. Kobachi protests that she wants her old teacher, not this random former classmate turned emergency faculty. Watching this, Saraki feels something shift. Back in high school, no one could approach Kobachi. She was admired from a safe distance, placed on a pedestal so high it needed air traffic control, like an untouchable genius. But right now, she doesn't look like a genius at all. She looks stubborn. The realization hits Saraki so suddenly that he lets out an awkward laugh. The timing could not be worse. Both Ayaha and Kobachi stare at him like he just malfunctioned publicly. Kobachi clearly takes it the wrong way. She quietly says goodbye and walks out. Ayaha instantly switches to panic mode and orders our lad to go after her. He hesitates for half a second before she drops the real stakes. The school wants Kobachi to officially graduate. Whether Saraki gets hired or not depends entirely on her. If she dislikes him, the job evaporates. So does his temporary lifeline. Saraki's already fragile world cracks again. Homeless yesterday, employed today, potentially unemployed in 5 minutes. He bolts out the door. He runs through the school trying to predict where a runaway genius would go, somewhere dramatic but has absolutely no idea. He searches until he reaches the lower floor, and there she is. Miss Half-Genius is lying flat on the ground like a defeated final boss who ran out of stamina. Saraki rushes over, genuinely alarmed. For one terrifying second, he thinks she's collapsed from emotional overload. Instead, she's just out of breath and on the verge of tears, admitting that it's been a long time since she's had to run. As Cursed MC kneels beside her, he suddenly notices it, a thin line of red under her nose. He points it out, worried. She immediately assumes the worst. That wasn't it at all. He apologizes quickly, trying to untangle the misunderstanding. He explains that back then, to the rest of their classmates, she wasn't just smart. She was a genius, a presence somewhere above the clouds. Seeing someone like that sprawled on the floor with a nosebleed feels unexpected. Kobachi denies the label immediately. She says she's not a genius. She just liked science since she was little and kept doing what she loved. What she can't do is force herself through subjects she hates. Whenever it gets hard, she runs. Meanwhile, everyone else pushes through things they dislike. To her, that's what's truly impressive, and she can't do it. Her eyes fill with tears as she admits that while everyone else is moving forward and growing up, she's the only one who hasn't changed at all. Saraki feels painfully awkward. He wants to help her, but he has no manual for comforting a fallen genius. His brain suggests making a silly face. Against all logic, he actually tries it. The result is questionable at best. Then something clicks in his memory. Back in high school, there was one time he approached her, a chemistry problem he kept getting wrong. He had debated asking the teacher, but noticed Kobachi was actually in class that day, which was rare, so he asked her for help. She didn't hesitate. She calmly walked him through the entire solution, step by step, taking her time until it made sense. Watching her think felt like witnessing something unreal. He remembers thanking her and admitting it was discouraging how easily she solved something that kept defeating him. And Kobachi had told him something simple. Even if he got it wrong, he just had to keep trying. If he kept at it, eventually he'd be able to solve it. Back in the present, that memory hit Saraki like a delayed realization. The person who once told him to keep trying is the same person who runs away when things aren't easy. And suddenly, something about that feels very important. Kobachi wipes her tears and admits it's a little embarrassing to say, but that idea actually comes from Einstein. Saraki perks up immediately, asking if it's some famous quote. She begins recalling it, mentioning the line about life being like riding a bicycle. Sitting in front of her, still awkwardly trying to comfort her, Saraki softly completes the rest. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Kobachi blinks in surprise. He knows it. MC smiles and explains that she probably doesn't remember, but he does. Back in high school, he once asked her for help. She had said those exact words to encourage him. He never forgot. For a moment, Kobachi smiles. She admits it's something she says when she wants to cheer someone on. Hearing it come back to her like this makes her pause. Saraki notices the shift in her expression and realizes this is not the time for self-pity. She straightens slightly and says she has to keep pedaling. Otherwise, next year she'll be a 21-year-old high schooler. He nods firmly. The reason he respects Kobachi was never just the awards or the recognition. It wasn't the published papers or the medals. It was the way she kept getting back up, even when experiments failed. That stubborn persistence was what made her cool. Suddenly, Ayaha appears again, noticing them nearby. Her eyes immediately lock onto Kobachi's nosebleed. In half a second, she grabs Saraki by the collar, furious and assuming the worst. She lectures him about crossing lines and doing unacceptable things. Saraki flails, desperately trying to explain that he didn't do anything. The misunderstanding spirals for a solid few seconds. Then Kobachi steps in calmly. She says she's fine now, just a little embarrassed. And then, with surprising resolve, she asks Ayaha to let Saraki be her teacher. Ayaha-sensei pauses. Something clearly happened, though Saraki himself has no idea what he did. After a beat, Ayaha breaks into loud approval. If Kobachi is motivated, that's what matters. Then she casually announces the next step. Oops boy needs to move in. His brain jumps to the most important detail first. The rent problem is temporarily solved. He is not homeless anymore. He assumes he'll be staying at Ayaha's place and asks for the key, confidently declaring he can move his minimal belongings by himself. Ayaha stares at him like he missed an entire paragraph of explanation. From now on, he will be living with Kobachi at her place. Silence drops like a bomb. Both of them process the sentence at the same time. And just like that, the awkward cohabitation arc begins. As our guy stands at the entrance of Kobachi's house, a memory ambushes him. Back in high school, his father watched the TV as Kobachi was featured as a 3-time physics Olympiad medalist. His father excitedly tells him he should learn something from her and try aiming for the Olympics instead of reading books all day. Saraki immediately shuts that idea down as completely unrealistic. Even back then, he knew the gap between them was astronomical. He also remembers how their entire class treated her like royalty. Classmates crowded around her desk, congratulating her, asking for autographs, telling her they saw her on TV. She was more famous than half the school. Compared to everyone else, she stood on an entirely different level. She wasn't just smart, she was their idol, and now that very idol is standing in front of him, casually telling him to come in. He greets her politely and steps inside. The house is massive. His brain short-circuits again. Is he really going to live here starting today? With Kobachi Koharu? He immediately scolds himself to think about literally anything else. Anything except the fact that he is about to cohabit with the former untouchable genius of his class. His thoughts spiral into chaotic laughter and confusion. Kobachi, completely calm, begins giving him a basic tour. Toilets on the first and second floors. Bath on the first floor. MC nods obediently, trying to process the layout and the situation at the same time. Then she casually says she'll be going now. He panics and stops her. Surely there should be more explanation. Rules, boundaries, basic survival guidelines for living together. He awkwardly suggests that since he's essentially freeloading, he can handle the house chores. Cooking, cleaning, whatever is necessary. She immediately rejects the idea. Chores are not necessary. She clarifies that she doesn't want him interfering with the rest of her life. Their relationship is strictly teacher and student. The study session will take place in the living room at 6 p.m. And just like that, she walks away, leaving him standing in a mansion with obvious academic boundaries and absolutely no idea how to emotionally process any of it. Right at 6 p.m., Saraki sits in the living room, waiting like a substitute teacher in his own life. The silence is heavy. His thoughts spiral immediately. He is clearly not being warmly welcomed here. This whole arrangement feels forced on Kobachi by Ayaha. Of course, she wouldn't be thrilled. That much is obvious. The ticking clock starts to sound less like time passing and more like judgment. Just as he sinks deeper into overthinking, his phone rings. Ayaha again. She jumps straight into interrogation mode, asking whether he's getting along with Kobachi and, more importantly, whether he's doing anything weird. Saraki denies everything at record speed and admits Kobachi doesn't seem particularly pleased with the situation. Ayaha drops a bomb casually. Kobachi is the one who chose him. For a second, his brain completely stops loading. Ayaha explains that she told Kobachi to pick a classmate or friend to help her study since she has other work to handle. Saraki's confusion multiplies. If that's the case, why him? Out of everyone? Then Ayaha asks the most unnecessary question imaginable, whether the two of them are secretly dating. Poor soul rejects that idea so hard it almost echoes, not even remotely close. Ayaha adds one more detail before hanging up. She had actually told Kobachi to pick a girl, but apparently that didn't happen. That detail lands like a quiet earthquake. She warns him she'll stop by to check on things and tells him to handle the situation properly. Then the call ends. Saraki stares at his phone like it personally betrayed him. His brain replays the line over and over. Kobachi chose him. He immediately tries to calm himself down. No assumptions, no delusions. They barely spoke in high school. There has to be another reason. There has to be. He repeats that sentence so many times it almost becomes a prayer. Instead of letting his imagination sabotage him, he decides to do something productive. If nothing else, he can clean. So he stands up and starts tidying the room, trying to organize the space while his thoughts remain completely unorganized. He wipes the table twice, then 3 times. The table is spotless. His mind is not. It's 10 p.m., and Kobachi is still nowhere to be seen. Saraki sits alone in the living room, staring at the clock like it personally offended him. 4 hours. He has been waiting for 4 actual hours. Irritation slowly replaces patience. She's not coming. Did she run away from the whole thing? No, that can't be it. Yesterday she looked serious. This doesn't add up. Waiting starts to feel heavier than carrying boxes all day. He finally gets up and heads to her room, knocking firmly and calling her name. It's way past their study time. No response. That's when he notices something strange. There are stairs leading higher. There's a floor above the 3rd. Curiosity overrides frustration. He climbs up and finds himself staring at a massive antenna structure stretching toward the sky. Kobachi is up there, adjusting something like rooftop engineering at night, which is completely normal behavior. He calls out to her. The wind drowns him out. She can't hear him at all. For a second, doubt creeps in. Is she ignoring him? Then everything happens at once. Her foot slips, and she falls. Saraki doesn't think. He catches her mid-drop, the impact nearly flattening him against the floor. He barely manages to comment on the weight while making sure she doesn't hit her head and checks her quickly. She apologizes right away and thanks him for saving her. Still catching his breath, he asks what she was even doing up there. She explains she was fixing the antenna because it's been acting up recently, as if climbing into the night sky alone is just another Tuesday. Then she asks what time it is. He tells her it's around 10:30 p.m. Her expression changes instantly. She realizes she made him wait for 4 hours. The apology comes out rushed and flustered. He stares at her in disbelief. She denies that it's like that and, incredibly, asks if they can start studying now. The test is coming. She wants to be prepared. Even after being 4 hours late, she's ready to begin immediately. Her priorities are terrifyingly consistent. Saraki looks at her for a moment, the frustration quietly dissolving. Instead of scolding her, he asks something simple. Isn't she hungry? She hesitates, then nods. A little later, he places a warm bowl of food in front of her. Steam rises gently between them. She looks genuinely surprised and asks what it is. He declares that he made it, using the ingredients in her kitchen without asking. Kobachi keeps staring at the food, like a cautious cat analyzing a new species. She looks oddly flustered and admits this is embarrassing. Being taken care of like this by a former classmate feels shameful to her. Then, with stiff politeness, she thanks him and says she'll eat. She quickly adds that he shouldn't forget she can cook too, as if reclaiming a tiny piece of pride. Saraki, genuinely confused, asks why she always sounds like she's picking a fight with him, and then she takes the biggest bite imaginable, all dignity gone. She declares it delicious through a mouthful of food, completely contradicting her earlier embarrassment. Poor MC can't help pointing out the size of that bite before circling back to the real question. She apologizes again and explains she has a bad habit that's difficult for others to understand. And when she focuses on something, she focuses too much. She stops hearing other people. She forgets to eat. She forgets to sleep. Whether it's research or anything else, once she starts, the world fades out. Saraki tries to respond lightly, saying there are people like that. But she continues. Sometimes she loses track of time so badly that 3 full days pass without her realizing. Saraki's soul practically leaves his body. He asks if that means she's been working non-stop. It has already been 12 hours since they parted earlier. Kobachi casually connects the dots and realizes that's why it was getting harder to see what she was doing. So, it's already night. Saraki just stares at her, eyes wide. She notices the look and immediately gets defensive. She asks if he's implying she's crazy. She insists she's been managing to arrive at school on time lately. Today was just a small slip. She doesn't usually mess up like this. Saraki quickly denies thinking she's weird. Instead, he says he finds it impressive. That level of focus must be hard to live with, but most people can't commit to something like that. To him, she really does seem like a genius. Kobachi freezes at the word. She looks down, cheeks turning red. She mutters that he's easy, that this entire past year, everyone treated her like she was useless. She says she couldn't help it, her voice shrinking at the edges, and despite everything, she blushes deeply when he calls her a genius again. After finishing the food, Kobachi quietly thanks him for the meal. She apologizes again for today, admitting that even though it was the first day, she made him wait for hours. She promises that tomorrow she'll definitely be there at 6 p.m., swearing nothing like this will happen again. MC watches her for a moment, then asks if he can ask her something. He asks why she's so determined to graduate from high school. He tells her that following the same path as everyone else isn't the only correct way to live. Her intense focus on research is an incredible strength. Even if she dropped out, someone like her could probably still find work. She doesn't have to force herself through graduation just because it's the standard route. Kobachi listens and replies calmly, asking if he thinks she's already a scientist. She isn't. To earn that title, she must first complete her doctorate, the true starting point. Without it, people see her as an amateur, just pretending. Right now, she hasn't even begun. Then she says it clearly. She wants to become a scientist. Saraki keeps thinking about that. It sounds almost ironic. To become a scientist, she has to struggle through humanities subjects, the very things she's worst at. Suddenly he stands up and lays out a plan. Wake up at 7 and breakfast at 8. He'll handle the morning chores since he has time. After school, she can do whatever she wants. But at 6 p.m., no matter what, he will drag her to the living room to study. From now on, he'll manage her schedule. He'll make sure she graduates this year, and that sounds like too much. She immediately rejects it, saying no thanks. Being taken care of like that by a classmate is humiliating. Saraki gets frustrated and raises his voice, saying that he's doing this so she can graduate. Why is she so stubbornly proud about the wrong things? She fires back, telling him not to look down on her. She may have slipped today, but she's usually responsible. Right as the argument heats up, his phone buzzes. A voice on the other end reminds him about something he said earlier, that he absolutely couldn't fail and needed last year's report. Saraki suddenly remembers it's Saturday. He awkwardly addresses the caller as senpai. On the other side is a cool, sharp-voiced senior who casually accuses him of enjoying making fun of others. The tone is confident, almost smug. Stress Goblin listens, feeling like life has once again decided to pile on. The scene shifts to Saraki's senior, Shinonome. She stands in front of a boy who looks like he has mastered the art of doing absolutely nothing. She reminds him that he was the one who proposed they work on the assignment together. Saraki would handle the research. She would prepare the presentation. That was the agreement. Yet somehow, not a single page of material exists. The boy casually explains he's been busy with club activities and his part-time job. Shinonome immediately shuts it down. If that's the case, she'll do the assignment alone. He doesn't need to show his face in front of her again. The temperature in the room drops instantly. The surrounding atmosphere agrees on one thing. Shinonome-san is terrifying. Still, there's an unspoken truth lingering in the air. That boy probably had ulterior motives from the start, and despite everything, part of her is annoyed at the unfairness of it all. He gets to walk away while she does the work. She sits down, opens her book, and exhales slowly. Her thoughts sharpen. Why are there so many careless people in the world? People who attend classes half-heartedly. People who treat assignments like optional side quests. College isn't free. Effort shouldn't be either. She simply cannot stand people who approach life without commitment. Then suddenly, Saraki bursts into the scene like a walking apology. He apologizes for what happened yesterday. He brought one cake to a 4-hour wait. Rookie mistake. In his hands is a small cake, an official apology offering. Shinonome turns her gaze on him, and it feels like being locked onto by a predator. She calls him an idiot and questions whether he truly thought a single gift would change her mind. Saraki internally collapses. Maybe he should have bought 2 cakes. Shinonome sighs, then mutters that he really is hopeless. She removes her coat calmly, which somehow makes the situation feel even more stressful. Then she delivers her verdict. If he wants forgiveness, he can start with a shoulder massage. The atmosphere shifts dramatically. Saraki freezes, but survival instincts activate. He steps behind her and begins the massage with trembling hands. After a moment, she asks him the real question. This time, she wants the proper reason. Saraki's mind races. He can't exactly bring up Kobachi-san, so he compresses the truth into something manageable. He's homeless, completely broke, and in a serious pinch. Shinonome exhales sharply, her frustration obvious after waiting for him the entire previous day. She makes it clear that if things were that bad, he should have at least sent a message. Saraki freezes, realizing she waited 4 full hours while he assumed she had left after half an hour. The tension spikes when she declares she won't lend him the reports again. Walking Sweat's heart drops without them. His credits, his assignments, everything could be at risk. But then her tone softens slightly, showing some concern for his situation. She asks whether he's okay and if he even has a place to stay. He nods, explaining that he's found somewhere, though the Student Affairs Office confiscated most of his belongings. Her expression tightens again at the thought that she can't visit his place anymore, lamenting the loss of his once impressive book collection. Saraki perks up defensively, assuring her that he managed to protect the few he could and even salvaged some treasured items. He presents a copy of Gunjo, the Department of Literature magazine, filled with faculty updates, research content, and student resources. It's published every 3rd of the month, and he offers it for her to read any time. He's defending free magazines like they're a national treasure. Shinonome gets annoyed at his continued dedication to collecting the magazines, a mix of surprise and amusement. Saraki explains that he follows every issue, including Sumeragi-sensei's latest work. She studies him for a moment, curious if he really keeps up with each publication. He launches into an unstoppable monologue about the latest mystery in Gunjo magazine, excitement spilling everywhere. Every tangled thread, every twist, finally forming a coherent picture. He can't help himself. Then he halts, realizing he might be spoiling things. Kobachi's reaction is calm. She notes she's read it too, and quietly critiques the cliffhanger as weak this time. Saraki flinches inwardly. Harsh but fair, he begins analyzing the author's potential, noting it's a student submission and wondering why the writer hasn't debuted professionally. Kobachi cuts through his praise sharply, calling him out for giving it too much credit and questioning the point of collecting freely available novels that few read besides him. Saraki defends the magazine, insisting the Student Affairs Office doesn't understand its quality and that one day people will recognize its greatness. He even offers to lend her all the issues so she can see for herself. After a brief pause, Kobachi relents, handing him the report and telling him to forget yesterday. Just finish the assignment. It's due tomorrow. Saraki stammers in shock, barely believing it. Kobachi, slightly flushed, insists firmly, leaving no room for argument. Later, at her house, she checks on him while he works. He explains he's just finishing the assignment and warns she might be late for the scheduled study session. The deadline is pressing. Kobachi's eyes light up at the sight of the assignment. Quantum mechanics sprawled across the page catches her attention like a shiny toy. Saraki freezes, utterly lost, muttering about how a literature student like him ended up buried in a science assignment. She studies his work with the fascination of a child staring at candy. The shock hits him. She's actually offering to do it for him. He hesitates, insisting it's his assignment and that everyone else is probably handling theirs properly. She tilts her head, curious, and then, decisively, takes over. The task is done in no time, flawlessly and clearly. Ghost Homework can't hide his admiration, impressed by how efficiently she finished it. She chuckles, brushing off his praise, claiming she's only shown the bad side of herself. Then, proudly, she asks if he thinks she's cool now, insisting she can get things done when it really matters. Saraki, sincere as ever, reminds her she's always been cool and that he respects her, words that land squarely on her heart, making her blush. Meanwhile, Senpai lounges on the floor of her apartment, diving into the novel with fervor. She notices Saraki's keen eye for literature and wonders if he'll come to campus tomorrow so they can discuss it further. Her thoughts drift as she blushes, recalling how he praised her work. Maybe, just maybe, it's okay if it's him appreciating it. In her head, she fantasizes about confessing her secret. She's the one writing the novel. Shinonome Yukina, a third-year literature student and aspiring novelist, has always dreamed of making it big, but it's too embarrassing to tell anyone. For now, she decides to wait until she wins an award or achieves something significant before revealing the truth to Saraki. The scene shifts to poor protagonist, who sweats as he looks at Kobachi's test marked 0 again. She feels embarrassed, her face red. The silence is heavy, and Saraki feels the weight of responsibility. Every blank answer makes him nervous. He teaches her patiently, pointing at each question and breaking it into small parts. Kobachi suddenly gets excited and wants to ask one more question. Saraki stops her, saying it's tiring and pointless to keep going without thinking. He reminds her that midterms are only a month away. She realizes he's right. At least she must avoid failing, even if an average score is enough. Saying average feels strange. For someone like her, it sounds like defeat. He asks how she usually tackles Japanese questions. She admits she mostly guesses based on grammar rules. He gives her an example, a storyline where a character feels thrown onto a platform and asks her to find its meaning. Step by step, he guides her to consider the character's feelings and the story context, explaining that the platform may be symbolic, a representation of shock or isolation. Kobachi is shocked at how effortlessly he makes it look and shouts in surprise. Saraki calmly notes it's hard to explain, more a feeling than a fact. She whispers that people good at Japanese seem to grasp this naturally. Saraki thinks she is the same. She points out that Japanese is not like math. There is no one correct answer, and it is hard to judge. He agrees and adds that sometimes the wrong answer still shows deep thinking. She asks him how he studies Japanese to be so good. Saraki says he might never have really studied it. Kobachi yells that it is unfair. Saraki just apologizes quietly. The room feels tense but also warm, like they are learning together and slowly understanding each other beyond textbooks. Saraki and Kobachi sit together, the air quiet except for the soft sound of papers shuffling. Kobachi asks what makes her different from him. He remembers back to high school and how he spent time with friends while she didn't. He shares random chats after school, silly jokes, and reading novels just for fun. She pauses on the word friends, repeating it like it has weight. He doesn't believe that playing with friends is the key to mastering Japanese. She quietly admits she didn't have any friends, that research took all her time, and even if she wanted friends, it wasn't possible. He never realized that someone so admired could have been so alone. She explains gently that she could have made friends if she wanted, but she focused on her work. He thinks about how surprising it is that she seemed popular, brilliant, untouchable, but her life was more solitary than he imagined. He starts to see that her weakness in Japanese is not about intelligence, but about experience. Stories talk about feelings, mistakes, regrets, love, and loss. If someone never pauses to live those moments, the words stay flat on the page. The day passes, quiet and studious. The next day, Saraki carries big boxes and complains loudly to Shinonome about having to help the art club. The boxes are full of paint and old posters, and his arms shake slightly. She teases him, saying he has nothing better to do, and suggests asking someone from his class to help. The teacher promised ice cream from the vending machine as a reward. Saraki points out that no one is left in his class. She shrugs and insists they need more people now, leaving him to grumble but keep moving the boxes. Overload MC glances into the classroom and sees Kobachi sitting there alone, focused on her notes. Shinonome asks if anyone else is around, but he doesn't want to bother her since she's studying, so he tells Shinonome there's no one else and to go enjoy the ice cream. Later, he approaches Kobachi and casually asks if she wants to get some ice cream. He hesitates, saying that going over the same textbook feels pointless, and suggests that revisiting the places he used to hang out in high school might give them some kind of clue about understanding people and emotions. Kobachi brightens at the idea and agrees enthusiastically. Saraki is surprised they are actually going, but she clarifies that it will be tomorrow after school in front of the station. Meanwhile, in the staff room, two teachers discuss Kobachi. One questions leaving such an important student under a college student's care, especially under the same roof, and suggests finding another teacher. Ayaha reasons that Kobachi's struggle isn't academic, it's a life experience. Japanese language problems often draw on emotions, personal experiences, and insights from living beyond studies. Kobachi has spent nearly her entire life in research, so she needs someone to guide her in life beyond science. Back with Saraki, he meets Kobachi again, but doesn't recognize her at first because she has tied her hair differently. She teases him, revealing her identity with a laugh, and strikes a confident, queen-like pose. Then she asks if he's ready to go, calling him by name, as if this small outing is the start of something new for both of them. Saraki asks Kobachi what happened to her hair. She explains it's a disguise. Whenever she goes out, she changes her clothes and hairstyle so she doesn't randomly bump into classmates. She asks if she looks like a totally different person now. Saraki notices a few guys staring at her and thinks that while she does look different, this disguise is creating a whole new category of problems. Stealth mode activated, but with extra attention to DLC. They stop at an ice cream vending machine. Kobachi holds the ice cream carefully, saying she has seen the machine before, but never actually bought from it. She asks if he used to come here often. Mr. Mess tells her a friend liked it, so he came sometimes. Then he suddenly wonders if it's really okay to drag her all the way here, just for vending machine ice cream. She answers with full confidence, clearly happy. For her, this is not about the ice cream, it's about the experience. Out of nowhere, she asks him if he thinks she is a little off, compared to other people. Saraki, running on zero social battery, awkwardly says, "Of course she is." The air drops 10 degrees. He immediately panics and tries to backtrack, but the emotional damage has already been done. Kobachi admits that maybe she is a little different. She thinks the reason she can't solve literature questions is that she lacks a normal sense of things. That's why she wants him to help her experience a normal high school after-school life. Maybe then she will find a hint. Meanwhile, Saraki calmly eats his ice cream, like he is not standing in the middle of a character development arc. He thinks it probably won't work that easily. What she lacks is an understanding of emotional and scenic descriptions, not just random outings. Still, he decides to stop overthinking. There's a limit to textbook exercises. One day off won't hurt. Productivity can take a nap. They begin exploring. First stop, a used bookstore he used to visit often. Kobachi's eyes widen at the number of foreign books stacked everywhere. She looks amazed, like she just discovered a new planet. Saraki quietly thinks again that this probably won't magically fix everything. Next, the library. Whispers float around them. Kobachi admits she sometimes comes here too. So much for expanding horizons. They are basically speed-running introvert locations. Then they enter a book cafe. Kobachi looks around in shock. It's nothing but books. She questions whether this is really what normal high schoolers do after school. Is there some massive reading boom she missed? Poor MC blushes slightly and says books are fun. Finally, they walk to the lakeside. Beautiful water flows quietly, sunlight reflecting on the surface. For a moment, things feel calm. They sit quietly on the stairs, a little distance between them. As Saraki talks about the first time he came to the lakeside, he tells her it was after a fight with a friend, how he wandered here feeling miserable, and how he saw the sunset and thought something important, though he can't quite remember what. Kobachi listens quietly, her eyes tracing the water, her expression softening with a mix of curiosity and longing. Then she speaks, her voice carrying a little sadness. She admits that Saraki's after-school life looks so nice, while hers was all research. She confesses that she secretly longed for these kinds of experiences. She regrets a little, saying she should have done more high school-like things back then. She explains that she thought research alone was enough until she became a third-year student and realized she might get held back. That's when she felt the sting. She didn't have a single friend she could talk to. She admits wanting friends for this reason might be selfish, but it's the first time she regrets the way she lived her life. She smiles faintly, like she's used to that pain. Her words strike Saraki deeply. He can't help thinking that it's not really her fault. Everyone called her a genius, treated her like she was on another level, and even gave her a special room. No one tried to approach her. The unspoken rule of "don't disturb Kobachi-san" existed everywhere. Her loneliness wasn't only her own doing. The surrounding expectations pushed people away. If only back then he had dared to reach out. He remembers the handful of times he actually spoke with her during all those years. It's hardly countable. He wonders if even one friend could have made a difference. Maybe she wouldn't have had to repeat a year. Maybe he's overthinking it. But the thought lingers, heavy in his chest. As he drifts in this quiet reflection, he notices her shifting, peering into the water. Her voice calls him sharply, full of excitement. She's pointing eagerly, almost bouncing on the balls of her feet. She wants him to come close, and there's a Japanese pond turtle in the water. Saraki smiles to himself, shaking off the heaviness of his thoughts. For the first time in a while, Kobachi-san looks like a regular high school girl, full of small, lively excitement. He stands and hurries over to her. They walk along the steps by the water. Our lad glances at the pond, surprised to see turtles. Kobachi perks up, bouncing slightly as she points out that Japanese pond turtles are rare and native to Japan. Saraki hesitates, then carefully asks if she got any hints for literature questions. Her expression darkens, and she admits she got too distracted watching the turtles. He reassures her and suggests heading home since the sun is setting. She nods, a little disappointed, but obeys. Then her eyes catch the sunset, and she freezes. mesmerized. She has never seen anything so beautiful. Saraki notices and gently asks if she's okay. She murmurs something about the sunset. He smiles, agreeing it's beautiful, and asks if she wants to watch it longer. She shakes her head, struggling for words, finally saying it feels like the end of the world, but aesthetically pleasing. The cool breeze brushes past, and her words strike him. He feels the same awe. Excited, he steps closer and shares a memory of that same feeling. The day he fought with a friend and came here thinking that if the world ended, it would be okay. Suddenly, Kobachi slips and falls into his arms. Fate seems to nudge them together. He holds her immediately, smiling, while she blushes. He checks if she's okay. She nods softly. The world seems to pause, the sunset framing their fragile, tender connection. He turns to her, eyes shining, and says that in literature, a sunset isn't just about a 6,000-degree sun or scattered light. Kobachi blinks, shocked and a little lost. Science has always been her world. He leans closer, voice low, explaining that just as a lemon can be a bomb, it can also be the light marking the end of a world, an image, a feeling, a story. As she stares, struggling to process the metaphor, Saraki recalls something almost forgotten: the thrill, the spark of interest in literature. Moments like this twist the ordinary into the extraordinary. For just a second, the sunset isn't only outside, it lights something inside both of them. The scene shifts to the classroom. Our lit boy, Saraki, sits quietly at his desk, already buried in a book before class even starts. Two boys lean over his desk and start teasing him, calling him literature boy and pointing out that he is always reading. McComley replies that class hasn't started yet, so there is no problem. But they shake their heads, saying that's not the point. They question whether he is really okay spending his entire campus life buried in books. They joke that bookworms aren't popular these days and that he should try being more social. Saraki doesn't even look up. He keeps reading and mutters that he doesn't care. In his mind, they are the ones who only think about girlfriends and nonsense. Then one of the boys casually drops a bomb, saying someone mentioned the other day that they kind of liked Saraki. His hand pauses mid-page. He slowly turns his head, clearly interested despite himself. The boys immediately catch him and start mocking him, laughing that he doesn't care after all and telling him to stop acting aloof. Their laughter fills the classroom. Saraki snaps at them to shut up, clearly annoyed. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes in the room. The entire class turns toward the door. Whispers spread instantly. Someone recognizes the girl from the university brochure. Others gossip about how beautiful she is. Someone mentions she might be the one who turned down Saito Senpai. Speculation spreads like wildfire. One of the boys quickly clears the empty seat beside him, trying to look cool. But the girl walks straight past him without even glancing his way. She moves through the classroom confidently and stops right beside Saraki's desk. The so-called beauty goddess of the university stands there calmly. Shinonome Senpai looks at him and politely asks if the seat next to him is taken. The entire classroom shifts energy in 1 second. Jealousy loads instantly. Every pair of eyes locks onto Saraki and Shinonome Senpai sitting together. The same boys who were laughing a minute ago now look personally attacked by fate. They whisper among themselves, wondering how he even knows Shinonome Senpai. The math is not mathing for them. Saraki, meanwhile, thinks those idiots are losing their minds just because he is sitting next to a girl. The bar is truly underground. He greets Shinonome happily, saying she shows up at the perfect time. She immediately tells him to stop making that weird face and mentions she barely made it in time. He comments that it's rare for her to be late. She explains she has been busy with her part-time job, picking up extra shifts lately. He asks why, and she suddenly bursts with excitement. Hoshikari-sensei's new book is finally out after almost 10 years. There is absolutely no way she would skip reading that, but she admits she already spent all her savings on last semester's tuition. Saraki casually mentions he already bought that book since he recently got paid from his part-time job. Her eyes widen, then she looks at him with sharp intensity and says she wants to read it. The classroom gossip reaches critical levels. Some students start whispering if he is Shinonome-san's boyfriend. Others question why they look so close. The jealousy is practically visible in the air. Drama magnet MC starts to offer that, if she wants, next time she can. And then his brain crashes. He remembers that he lives with Kobachi-san now, a high school girl. There is no way he can casually invite Shinonome over like before. Absolutely not. That route is locked. He quickly switches gears and awkwardly says he will just bring the book to the university next time instead. Crisis narrowly avoided. For now. Class begins, and the professor starts the lecture. Saraki tries to focus, but his mind drifts. He suddenly realizes that living with a high school girl, who is technically the same age as him, sounds extremely suspicious. Add the fact that a high school teacher arranged the whole setup, and his brain starts flashing warning signs. This is either wholesome or half illegal. There is no in-between. His thoughts slide back to yesterday morning. He rushes into Kobachi's room, trying to wake her up before she's late again. She sleeps peacefully like a goddess who has never heard of alarms. He calls her name in panic, reminding her she stayed up late researching again. She jolts awake, confused, asking what time it is. The memory freezes there. Suddenly, a voice whispers near his ear, pulling him back to reality. Shinonome leans slightly closer and asks why he didn't embrace her. His brain short-circuits. Before he can process anything, the teacher calls his name and asks how he would interpret a passage from a poem by Yosano Akiko. Without thinking, still trapped inside his memory, Saraki blurts out the same line, "Why didn't you embrace her?" The teacher pauses, then nods approvingly. Apparently, that interpretation fits perfectly with the emotional nuance of the poem. The teacher looks impressed. Saraki laughs nervously and apologizes, pretending that it was fully intentional and not a brain glitch. Shinonome watches him with admiration, but quietly tells him to pull himself together. After the lecture ends, the same boys swarm him again. They demand to know how he is so close to Shinonome-senpai. Saraki shrugs and says they are just fans of the same novels. The boys freeze. Reading? Is reading the hidden cheat code to popularity? Saraki snaps that he has no idea and tries to leave because he has another lecture. They grab him again, refusing to let him escape. Right then, Shinonome appears beside him like perfect timing, DLC. She casually mentions that his next lecture is in Building A and suggests they go together. The boys stand there in disbelief as Saraki gets escorted away like he just unlocked a legendary character route. Shinonome's sudden appearance is enough to make the boys back off. They let MC go, but not without dramatic glares. As he walks beside her, he thanks her sincerely, saying she saved him. She brushes it off casually, saying it's no big deal. Behind them, the boys boil with jealousy. One of them declares revenge. From today onward, he's reading books. If novels are the secret weapon, then so be it. Academic villain arc unlocked. As they walk, Saraki awkwardly asks Shinonome if she's popular. She calmly nods without hesitation. He freezes internally. The confidence, the self-awareness. She explains that when people keep hitting on you non-stop at seminars, part-time jobs, basically everywhere, you don't really have a choice but to notice. Saraki laughs nervously and says, "That sounds exhausting. Being admired sounds cool in theory, but in practice, it's just constant noise." Then she turns the question on him. Is there anyone he likes? His thoughts scatter, and the scene shifts. Kobachi stands in front of him proudly, holding up her quiz paper like a trophy. She announces her score dramatically, 13 points. Saraki feels a wave of concern. At this rate, midterms are going to be a full disaster. But Kobachi blushes happily and thanks him, saying it's the first time she has ever scored double digits in modern Japanese. He stares at her, completely confused about why she looks so proud. The bar is low, but her joy is genuine. The scene shifts back to the lakeside. The water is calm again. Cutie MC suggests that she start writing a diary. Putting emotions into words is what she needs right now. Kobachi immediately resists, saying that sounds too subjective. She worries she won't know if she's choosing the right words. Saraki reminds her about the sunset. She felt the same thing he did in that moment. That proves something. He tells her she isn't weird or off. She just has less experience expressing emotions compared to others. If she expands her vocabulary for feelings, if she practices putting them into words, her literary skills will definitely improve. For once, his voice carries quiet certainty, not teasing, just belief. Back in class, Kobachi thanks him for the 13 points. She says this small victory might be because of his advice, or maybe just pure luck. Saraki watches her quietly and realizes something. That day at the lake was not wasted at all. It is only 13 points. But for Kobachi-san, it is a huge step. He reminds himself that there is no need to rush. They are moving forward, slowly but surely. And honestly, that feels enough. He is genuinely happy seeing her make progress, even if it is tiny. He tells her they should keep it up and aim for the midterms next. She nods with determination. Then he casually asks what they should do for dinner and offers to cook. She immediately says yes, then suddenly pauses. Her expression changes like she is calculating something important. After a moment, she hesitates and brings up the experience again. There is actually a place she has always wanted to try. Saraki stiffens when eating out. His wallet starts sweating. He does not like spending money on anything that is not books. Financial priorities are crystal clear. Then Kobachi quietly says she will pay. He instantly transforms. Royal energy unlocked. He declares they should go immediately, and so they arrive at a small Chinese restaurant. MC stares at the entrance like it is the final boss gate. He whispers in shock that it's ramen. Kobachi admits she always felt awkward going alone. So Kobachi-san thinks about things like that too. Not just research papers and quantum theories. He casually says that if she ever wants to go somewhere, she just needs to say the word. Small pause. Especially if she is treating. She looks surprised and asks if he is serious. Before he can answer properly, the restaurant door slides open. Shinonome-senpai cooks like she owns the restaurant. Even the kitchen seems intimidated. Saraki and Kobachi sit at their table, and he tells Kobachi this is his university senpai. And then with the speed of light, the food lands in front of them with perfect timing. Saraki nearly jumps out of his seat. Kobachi praises the food with honest gratitude. Meanwhile, he stares at the counter in disbelief. He never imagined Shinonome-senpai working somewhere like this. He always pictured her in a stylish cafe, maybe surrounded by books and soft lighting. He leans toward Kobachi and whispers that they should eat fast and leave. Shinonome is sharp, too sharp. If she learns he's living with her, the misunderstanding will explode. Even having dinner alone with a high school girl already sounds suspicious to him, and his imagination only worsens it. Kobachi calmly says that a proper explanation would fix everything. If there's nothing shady, there's nothing to hide. Saraki isn't convinced, especially with Shinonome already looking like she's in a dangerous mood. Suddenly, the chef shouts from the kitchen, asking where she went, because Shinonome is no longer behind the counter. She is now sitting at their table, relaxed and unbothered. Poor MC carefully asks about her shift. She replies that she just got off work, so they should talk. Then she turns her full attention to Kobachi. The air temperature drops slightly. She asks who the girl is. She did not know Saraki had other female friends. Saraki almost chokes. He quickly explains that he started working part-time as a cram school tutor, and Kobachi is one of his students. Shinonome's expression shifts into something unreadable. A tutor casually going out for ramen with his student on his own time. Interesting. And wasn't he the one being treated? Is he seriously letting a high school girl pay for his meal? The silence that follows feels sharper than any knife in the kitchen. Saraki immediately explodes in panic. He pulls out his wallet so fast that it almost tears. Of course he was going to pay her back. Of course. The 2,000 yen echoes in his mind like a national emergency. His precious 2,000 yen. Before he can recover, a chef asks Shinonome if the usual staff meal is fine. She casually agrees, then realizes what that means. Plates start filling the table one after another, more like a food festival than dinner. Saraki watches in awe and slight fear, carefully commenting that she really eats a lot. Shinonome immediately denies it while aggressively starting to eat. She skips breakfast and lunch for this meal. Then, without warning, she drops the real bomb and asks if the two of them are dating. Both Saraki and Kobachi freeze at the same time. Even if they are not lovers, calling her just a student sounds suspiciously cheap. They do not look like family either. He tries to explain, but the word liar slices through the air before he can finish. She brings up the day he failed to pick up his report. She found it strange. A man does not forget a promise with a woman unless there is another woman involved. That is basic logic. So he must have been with Kobachi that day. Saraki internally collapses as Senpai is terrifyingly sharp. Kobachi finally steps in and tries to clarify that she truly is his student. She asks why Shinonome is so focused on their relationship. Why the harsh tone towards Saraki? Whatever kind of relationship they have, it is not Shinonome's business. That sentence hits, and something snaps inside Shinonome. She suddenly calls for beer, loudly. The chef reminds her that beer is not included in staff meals. She orders him to bring it anyway. Moments later, she grabs the glass and drinks with dramatic force. The tension at the table grows thicker than the broth in their bowls, and Saraki slowly realizes this dinner has officially turned into a battlefield. And then Shinonome suddenly leans back, cheeks slightly red, eyes sharp but unfocused. She declares that she only wants to protect her Kouhai from shady women. Her gaze slowly shifts toward Kobachi. She squints dramatically and announces that there is no way Kobachi is a high schooler. Kobachi reacts instantly, confused and offended. Shinonome insists it is obvious. Kobachi acts far too mature. No teenager carries herself like that. She stiffens, and her pride takes damage. Then, drunk logic activates. Shinonome points at her face and boldly claims her skin does not look like that of a teenager. She even leans forward and squeezes Kobachi's cheek repeatedly as if conducting a scientific inspection. The uniform, she adds, does not even fit properly. Is she not embarrassed wandering around dressed like that at her age? Kobachi turns bright red, caught between outrage and humiliation. But Shinonome is not done. She suddenly accuses Saraki of having a thing for girls in uniforms. He is clearly being tricked and needs to stop immediately. He can only stare at the chaos and weakly suggests she might be getting drunk too fast. That makes things worse. Kobachi's eyes narrow. Her pride kicks in. She orders another beer. The chef hesitates, saying she looks underage, but she insists. Saraki panics and asks if she has ever even had alcohol. She admits she has not, but refuses to back down. Then she drinks the entire mug in one go like juice. His soul leaves his body for the second time that night. Now both girls are flushed and unreasonable. Shinonome declares she knew it. Kobachi must be an adult. She boldly claims she is 20. So what if she is? Shinonome fires back that if she is that old, she should have some shame and stop seducing her kuhai. She is too old to wear a school uniform. Kobachi explodes, demanding to know why Shinonome is interfering at all. She should just eat and leave. And what does she mean by weird shop? The argument spirals into pure nonsense while Saraki sits between them like a helpless civilian in a war zone. Eventually the energy burns out. Both of them slump forward onto the table, defeated by their own pride and alcohol. Senpai continues muttering that her uniform would look better anyway, and warns Saraki not to be fooled. Kobachi barely lifts her head and asks for one more drink before trailing off. The chef looks at Saraki with zero sympathy and tells him to handle the situation, and also the beer bill. After that, Saraki somehow ends up supporting both girls at once, one arm around each of them as he struggles toward the restaurant exit. He wonders how a simple ramen dinner became a rescue mission. He asks Shinonome if she can walk. She weakly says it is impossible. Now he carries almost all their weight, arms shaking, back aching. A taxi would help, but his wallet says no. So he moves one painful step at a time. Just as he adjusts his grip, a sharp voice calls Kobachi's name. Kobachi lazily looks up at the girl standing before them, as if she barely recognizes her. The girl's expression is cold. She says Kobachi seems to be living comfortably. The air turns tense. She steps closer and asks if Kobachi has forgotten her sin. Saraki realizes the night is about to get even worse. The scene shifts to Kobachi as she looks toward Saraki with clearer eyes than before. The first thing she asks is whether Shinonome is okay. He reassures her that she is sleeping soundly upstairs, completely knocked out. But his mind is somewhere else. He turns toward the unfamiliar hot girl in front of them and asks who she is exactly. The girl looks personally offended that he does not recognize her. She asks if he is even from Earth. Then, with dramatic pride, she introduces herself as Emma, a genius physicist at the space development company Astral, like a superhero revealing her true identity. Before Saraki can react, she throws something at him, her autograph. He should treasure it like a family heirloom, she says. He looks at it and calmly hands it back. He does not need it. He quickly turns to Kobachi and asks if she knows this person. She answers slowly. Emma is more of an acquaintance of her scientist father. That is new information. His thoughts spiral immediately. Where is her father now? What is he doing? Does he know Saraki is living here? Would this become a disaster if he found out? Kobachi quietly tells him not to worry about that part. It is fine. Emma suddenly smiles brightly and steps closer to Kobachi. She comments on how much Kobachi has grown. She even uses a slightly different name when addressing her, as if recalling a childhood memory. Without warning, Emma wraps her in a tight hug, like Kobachi is still a small child. She excitedly asks how old she is now, squeezing her shoulders with dramatic energy. Saraki stands there, watching this unfold, realizing he has just entered an entirely new chapter of Kobachi's life that he knew nothing about. Kobachi straightens herself and answers calmly. She is 20. Emma gasps dramatically. That means she is officially an adult now. She immediately asks what Kobachi is doing these days. Research? University? A lab somewhere? Kobachi quietly admits she is still in high school. She could not earn credits for the Japanese class. Emma shocks high school? Not even college? That makes no sense. She reminds Kobachi that she is Dr. Kobachi's daughter. Shouldn't she be far ahead already? Does Japan not allow grade skipping? Kobachi explains that it does exist, but only a few universities accept it, and in the field she is aiming for, the options are even more limited. Emma suggests going overseas instead. Kobachi immediately shuts that down. It is not possible. Or rather, she has no intention of doing that. Emma knows her circumstances. She suggests Kobachi try trusting people a little more. If she cannot even graduate high school, then what is the point of chasing something bigger? That hits a nerve. Kobachi snaps and tells her to stop. That is enough. They should get to the real reason she came. What business does she have with this house now? Without warning, Emma throws her shirt at Saraki. It lands on his face, blinding him. Her voice turns serious. She wants Dr. Kobachi's research data. All of it. Kobachi's expression hardens. She expected this. Saraki looks between them, confused. What research? Kobachi briefly explains that she is protecting her father's important research. She cannot share details, but it has great value. Saraki awkwardly asks if she can just give it to Emma. Kobachi refuses at once. If completed, the research could even win a Nobel Prize. That sounds dramatic to Saraki, but she insists it is true. When he asks what her father studies, she hesitates. She cannot say, but she makes one thing clear: she will not hand it over. Emma should leave. Emma calmly admits she would not give it up either. Then she glances outside. It is already dark. Would it be fine if she stayed the night? Kobachi instantly refuses, accusing her of planning to search the house. Emma denies it smoothly. Saraki quietly notes she is not very good at lying. Kobachi turns to him and asks if there are still trains running. Emma suddenly turns to Saraki, pointing at his worn-out clothes. She grabs his shoulder and comments that he seems popular with girls, she says. Is he into older women? Still, she casually adds that his face is somewhat her type. Saraki freezes, unsure which insult to react to first. Then he loudly warns Kobachi not to fall for such an obvious honey trap. Maybe Emma is secretly nice, but this feels cheap. Kobachi snaps back that even she can tell Emma is lying. Saraki, however, looks oddly thoughtful. She did say he is her type. His priorities are visibly collapsing in real time. Emma leans in again and teases him. Her voice turns syrupy sweet, deliberately exaggerated. Saraki instantly folds and asks her to elaborate, eyes shining with dangerous curiosity. A sharp sound cuts through the air. Kobachi slaps him. The crack echoes louder than expected, freezing the moment in place. She pulls him closer and calls him an idiot. He looks genuinely wounded by the word. Idiot feels harsher than the slap. She grabs his hand and forces his face down, holding him firmly. Saraki freezes, sweat forming from pure awkwardness, unsure whether he's in danger or something worse. Kobachi scolds him, mocking how easily he gets flustered when pampered. Saraki notes internally that she is definitely still drunk. She continues, questioning his lack of shame and even mentioning his mother. She pulls at his cheeks, stretching his eyes and mouth. Saraki quickly surrenders, apologizing repeatedly. Finally, Kobachi releases him and turns to Emma with steady resolve. She declares that she will fulfill her father's legacy alone. Emma watches, a small knowing smile forming. She mutters that maybe it's hopeless, and shrugs. Seeing that Kobachi is doing better than expected already makes the trip worthwhile. But before leaving, she issues one final warning. If Kobachi hesitates, someone else might complete the research first. The next morning, Senpai wakes up like a zombie as birds chirp outside, scanning the unfamiliar room and trying to recall yesterday. Memories of Saraki eating ramen with a strange woman feel blurry. Panic flashes across her face, but she quickly adjusts her clothes and notices her phone. Stepping into the hallway, she wonders if someone lives here. Opening a door, she is greeted by Kobachi, changing inside and slams it shut in shock, realizing this must be Kobachi's house. The place is expensive, and Saraki suddenly appears in a heart-patterned apron, cheerfully saying he was about to wake her. At breakfast, Kobachi casually reveals she is a fifth-year high school student living with him, leaving Senpai's brain completely short-circuited. Kobachi calmly explains that she is living with Saraki-kun, who helps her with daily life and tutors her. Senpai listens carefully. She says she understands, though it is still a bit hard to believe. Then suddenly she bows and apologizes sincerely. She admits she said many awful things without knowing the situation. She is truly sorry. Kobachi glances at Saraki and quietly mutters that Senpai is far more reasonable than she expected. Saraki shrugs and says Senpai is usually very serious and strict. Yesterday was just strange. Kobachi bows as well and admits she may have overreacted too, and apologizes. Senpai jokingly wonders if the whole not looking like a high schooler thing was just a misunderstanding too. Saraki quickly agrees on the misunderstanding. Inside, he sighs in relief. Good. Senpai is way calmer than yesterday. A machine bell suddenly dings. Saraki rushes off to hang the laundry, leaving the two girls alone. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. Senpai hesitates, but she understands it is for graduation. But is it really okay for a guy and a girl to live together? Kobachi calmly assures Senpai that their relationship is completely wholesome. She isn't convinced, maybe for now, but worries, since they are a man and a woman. It's supposed to be just Japanese tutoring, but what if things get out of hand? Kobachi casually mentions that Saraki has also been asking for help, about 2 or 3 times a week. Senpai's mind spirals, and she suddenly slams her head onto the table, furious and flustered. Kobachi, startled, asks what's wrong. Senpai insists it's nothing, but she clearly isn't calm. She blurts out that this is absolutely not okay. They were supposed to be seriously studying literature. Kobachi explains softly that yes, they are, but Saraki has been repeatedly struggling and practically begging her for help instead. Senpai's imagination runs wild, and her expression darkens. In a surge of protective fury, she grips a bat. Kobachi, alarmed, asks what she plans to do. Senpai declares they should take him down together, insisting it's to protect Kobachi. Kobachi calmly says she's fine with the tutoring arrangement and doesn't mind helping him. Senpai, shocked, asks if she really likes it. Kobachi explains that Saraki is just cute when flustered, and it's satisfying to take the lead sometimes. Senpai erupts, calling Kobachi an unbelievable idiot. Exhaling sharply, Senpai tries to regain composure. Saraki walks in, and she turns toward him with menacing eyes, commenting on his dedication to studies. Petrified, he asks Kobachi what happened. She cheerfully says they were just having a pleasant chat. Senpai firmly instructs him to come to the university library that evening. Later, Saraki sits alone in the quiet library, uneasy and wondering what Kobachi told Senpai. Soft footsteps approach, and a beautiful girl gracefully sits in front of him, despite many empty seats. Her face is partly hidden under a low hat. Saraki, suspicious and confused, looks up as she calls his name. Startled, he lifts his gaze fully and realizes the girl is Kobachi. The library vibe gets weird fast. Saraki stares at Kobachi, his brain basically lagging. She isn't in her uniform. She's wearing a disguise that looks like she's ready to drop a K-pop dance cover. He tells her she looks more like a fashion influencer than a student, and she gets low-key offended because she actually put effort into the college girl aesthetic. Saraki demands to know why she's even at the uni. The answer? Shinonome-san invited her. Before he can process this random alliance, Shinonome appears looking like an absolute goddess. She doesn't explain anything. She just decided that the 3 of them are hanging out now. Suddenly, the setting shifts to a billiards hall. It's a total main character move by Shinonome. The place is dark, mature, and expensive. Kobachi is visibly shaken. Shinonome just shrugs it off, revealing she's such a regular that the staff gives her free passes. Saraki realizes his quiet night is officially over. He's just a side character in Shinonome's world now. Saraki's internal monologue is basically a bruh moment. He remembers being dragged here by Shinonome way too often. Back when they were both broke, they used billiards to settle bets on who would pay for lunch. Shinonome flexes immediately, reminding him that she basically never loses. The rules for 9-ball flash on the screen. Hit the balls in order and sink the 9 to win. Kobachi looks like the clueless cat meme. She has zero idea how billiards works, but she's weirdly confident about darts. The game starts with a satisfying clack as Shinonome breaks. Saraki isn't falling for the just hanging out vibe. He knows her. She only brings people here when she's about to negotiate something important. He calls her out, asking what the real bet is. Shinonome turns bright red and enters fast talker mode. She declares the stakes. If she wins, Saraki has to do whatever she says. It's the most vague, high-risk demand ever. When he questions it, she defaults to "shut up, or I'll kill you." Pure goddess-tier aggression. If she loses, she'll return the favor, telling him he should be happy about it. Saraki is totally lost. He thought she was mad about him living with Kobachi, but now he thinks she's just trying to bond through sports. Meanwhile, Shinonome is internally screaming. She's spiraling, realizing she's too awkward to just say she wants them to stop living together. She's blaming herself for being too chill as a senpai and letting her chance slip away. She chose billiards out of pure panic, and now she's stuck playing 4D chess with a pool cue. Shinonome dwells on the past. Back then, she felt certain Saraki would always be a lonely bookworm. Finding out he lives with a girl feels like a total system error. Her strategy remains clear: to win the game and confess her feelings. Shinonome plays with the confidence of a pool hall pro, but the clueless student disrupts her focus. A ball drops perfectly, and Kobachi blankly asks about her score. Saraki, hyped, loses his mind over her beginner's luck. Kobachi simply flexes, warning him not to underestimate her. Shinonome ignores Saraki's apology, glaring like steel. In her mind, Kobachi is the final boss blocking her victory. She stops playing nice and delivers a chilling remark. Kobachi misses the dark aura entirely. Shinonome lines up a perfect combination shot like a seasoned pro, then asks if hitting one ball into another counts as a foul, genuinely confused by her own skill. Saraki stands floored, joking she should go pro if she flunks high school. Kobachi reacts, threatening to punch him for the comment. Shinonome, reaching her limit, calls them naive, steps toward the table, and transforms into a billiards goddess ready to show who runs the hall. Kobachi eyes the high table and wonders if climbing onto the slate counts as a foul. Saraki gives her the green light as long as she keeps one foot planted on the floor. Across from them, Shinonome finally finds her rhythm. She strikes the cue ball with clinical precision. Kobachi offers some rare praise, admitting the girl has skills. Shinonome doesn't miss a beat. She accepts the compliment with the icy pride of a queen. Kobachi leans toward Saraki and whispers about their potential prize. Since Shinonome promised them anything, she wants to know what they should demand. Saraki plays it safe. He suggests asking his senpai for tutoring since her academic stats are off the charts. Shinonome catches the comment and her vibe turns chillingly intellectual. She offers to give them a lesson right then and there. She claims both of them have completely missed the most important point of literature. The two of them freeze under her gaze, feeling like they just walked into a surprise exam. The topic of the day? Love. Shinonome asks if they even possess the brain power to understand the word. She strikes the ball again, playing with the intensity of a national champion. Saraki watches in total shock as she pulls off a technical draw shot. He realizes she is not just playing a game anymore. To Shinonome, the essence of every book and every story boils down to one thing: love. And she looks ready to school them both on exactly how it works. Shinonome enters full lecture mode, using her pool cue like a conductor's baton. She traces romance back to the Meiji era, explaining how writers struggled to translate Western concepts of love into Japanese. Referencing Natsume Soseki and Mori, she shows that love is not just passion, but a disciplined, layered art shaped by language and culture. Pacing around the table like a lecturer, she uses her cue to diagram invisible emotional arcs: confession, hesitation, longing, and sacrifice. She punctuates her history lesson with a final, aggressive strike. The last ball drops into the pocket with a clean plunk. Saraki stands there, completely lost. He recognizes the literary references but fails to see why a pool hall has suddenly turned into a university seminar. Shinonome's face turns a deep shade of crimson. She stammers, her voice tripping over words as she tries to reach her point. The bomb finally drops. Shinonome accuses them of skipping romance and jumping straight to inappropriate behavior, claiming Saraki is a fraud who values cheap comfort over real emotion. She slams a ball across the table, her embarrassment fueling her intensity. Saraki, shocked, demands an explanation. Shinonome admits that after her morning chat with Kobachi, she thought they were in a romantic relationship. Panicked, Saraki turns to Kobachi, needing to know what she said, but the billiard manager interrupts, ending their time. The group moves to a park. Saraki points out the logic flaw. If anything improper were happening, they would at least claim to be dating. Shinonome concedes the point but switches back to protective mode, insisting anyone would worry about a guy living with a high schooler. Her energy softens as guilt hits, and she apologizes for prying and using intellectual theatrics just to mess with them. Saraki realizes she knows exactly how dramatic she was being. He looks at Kobachi and feels the reality of his situation. He remembers his teacher saying that Kobachi was the one who handpicked him. He finally asks the big question. Out of everyone in the world, why did she choose him? Kobachi ignores the deep question and pivots back to the game. She reminds everyone that the bet still stands. Since Shinonome won, they are legally obligated to follow her orders. Shinonome jolts as the realization hits her system. This is it, the perfect moment she planned for. Her brain becomes a chaotic library of famous Japanese literature. She thinks of every poetic way to say I love you without actually saying it. Quotes about the moon, beautiful fires in the heart, and the sheer necessity of existence swirl in her head. She looks at Saraki, her face ready to melt from the heat of her own embarrassment. She tries to find the words to extinguish the fire he started in her heart. She prepares to tell him he is essential to her life, but the words get stuck in her throat. The heavy tension of the literary masters vanishes as Shinonome suddenly tosses a coin at Saraki. He catches it with a look of pure confusion. Instead of a life-changing confession, she orders him to go buy juice for everyone. It is her treat, a peace offering for her earlier meltdown. Saraki is genuinely shaken. The fact that his notoriously frugal senpai is offering to buy something other than free tap water feels like a miracle. He even checks the coin twice, half expecting it to dissolve into a prank. He studies her face for hidden sarcasm, but finds none. This is real. He sprints toward the vending machine before she can change her mind, leaving the two girls alone in the park. As soon as he disappears, Shinonome's face turns a violent shade of tomato red. She slumps over, drowning in a wave of self-loathing. Her shoulders curl inward as if she is physically trying to shrink out of existence. She replays every dramatic word she hurled at him, each one echoing louder in hindsight. She realizes she made a total fool of herself with those wild assumptions. Kobachi watches her, sensing the energy shift. She finally asks what has been lingering all night. Why does Shinonome care so much about Saraki? Shinonome tries to play it cool. She claims it is just a normal senior-junior dynamic, but her voice lacks conviction. She fiddles with the hem of her sleeve, avoiding eye contact. She admits she has never been close to anyone before, so she is just figuring things out. Kobachi pushes further, asking if she treats all her juniors this way. Shinonome falters. She realizes Saraki is the only one. He was the first person to ever tell her that her writing was actually interesting. The sadness returns to her eyes. She confesses that she is totally lost in her own emotions. This is the first time her heart has ever felt this chaotic. Then, in the quiet of the park, the truth finally comes out. Kobachi watches in shock as the proud, sharp-tongued senpai finally drops the act and admits it. She likes Saraki. Saraki enters with the energy of a five-star chef, presenting a plate of omurice like a national treasure. He does a dramatic countdown, proudly offering a buffet of toppings, completely unaware of the mood shift coming. Kobachi stares coldly at the eggs and issues a reality check. They're talking too much. The roommate boundary is blurring, and from now on it's strict studying. No small talk, no fun. Unfazed, he asks if no talking includes waking her in the morning or stopping late-night research. Kobachi, flustered, ignores his point, slams the door, and enforces silence. Saraki stands at the sink, washing dishes, wondering if he just witnessed the start of a high school rebellion. The scene flashes back to the park conversation. Kobachi is still reeling from the confession. She tries to cope by asking if Shinonome means it in a platonic, best friend way. Shinonome shuts that down immediately. She uses a classic literary reference to clarify, this is not a friendship. She is head over heels. Kobachi's brain short-circuits. The realization that her strict senpai is actually a romantic rival hits her like a truck. Shinonome notices the pure distress on the girl's face and realizes why Kobachi was so defensive about Saraki from the start. For the first time, the goddess-level senpai actually feels a bit bad for the shock she just delivered. Kobachi admits she is a total disaster when it comes to romance. She asks the million-dollar question, does Shinonome hate the fact that she and Saraki live together? Shinonome's no is so loud it practically shakes the park. She clarifies that tutoring is fine, but the cohabitation part is a massive red flag. Then, the suspicion flips back. Shinonome demands to know if Kobachi likes Saraki too. Kobachi denies it instantly, claiming she has zero romantic feelings for him. Shinonome looks skeptical, but Kobachi stands her ground. She claims her life is already spoken for. She is dedicating every waking moment to her research. That is her true North Star. She even tells Shinonome to keep coming over to the house, offering to play wingwoman and support her love story. Shinonome is baffled. She wonders why, if romance isn't the goal, it had to be Saraki. Out of everyone in the world, why him? Kobachi doubles down on her lone werewolf aesthetic. She swears she has no intention of spending her life with anyone and plans to stay single forever. Shinonome actually laughs at the drama of it. She reminds Kobachi that she is only 20 and has a lot of life left to change her mind. Kobachi just stares back, unamused. Inside her head, Kobachi's confidence starts to crack. She realizes she never really considered Saraki's perspective. He has a life too. She starts to feel like a homewrecker for a relationship that hasn't even happened yet. She thinks that if she weren't taking up all his time, he and Shinonome would probably be a couple by now. The self-reflection gets dark. Kobachi acknowledges that the genius label is a bit of a scam. She is a specialist, not an all-rounder. She looks at her internal stats chart. Her science and math levels are breaking the scale, but her humanities, social skills, and luck are in the gutter. She realizes she is essentially a high-spec machine that can't function without a handler. She starts to feel like a villain, realizing she is effectively stealing Saraki's prime college years, his chance at sports, fun, and love, just to keep herself afloat. The guilt finally triggers a main character's awakening. Kobachi realizes her academic failure stems from running away instead of facing her flaws. She decides to stop being a burden and vows to solve her own problems like a real adult. If Saraki and everyone else can function in society, she tells herself she can too. It is time to end the era of total dependence. The universe tests her immediately with the worst possible event, the sports festival. While her classmates are screaming with high-energy youth vibes about their final festival ever, Kobachi is dying inside. She completely forgot this was even happening. Teamwork is her ultimate weakness, and the forced social interaction feels like a boss fight she isn't leveled for. The social gap hits hard. When she tries to introduce herself, her own classmates barely recognize her. The repeat student label hangs over her head like a debuff. Kobachi is treated with kid gloves by the sensei, who tells her she doesn't even need to participate. Just showing up for the opening ceremony is enough for credit. Kobachi insists she should do something as a class member, but the sensei stays polite and distant. She finally realizes that, after being held back twice, she's no longer just a student, she's an outsider. Asking bluntly if she stands out as the weird one, the sensei nervously sugarcoats it. Everyone respects her, code for, "we're intimidated." When a student struggles with a heavy box, Kobachi jumps in to prove herself, even though the box is light. She accepts her fate as the noticeable, twice-repeating 20-year-old nobody knows how to talk to. The old Kobachi only cared about research, but now she's showing she wants to fit in, a major moment of character growth. The scene shifts as one sensei can't believe Kobachi actually showed up at the sports festival. Ayaha reasons that normally she's buried in research, she would miss it entirely. She isn't competing. Ayaha planned for her to stay in the classroom, but she insists on cheering outside. On the field, Kobachi applies her be a better person philosophy in genius fashion. A boy from her class, defeated after finishing last in a sprint, apologizes for being useless. Instead of a simple encouragement, Kobachi gives a quick physics breakdown, explaining how his center of gravity and ground reaction force actually optimized his motion. Before he can process it, she goes for a fast, awkward high five. The boy freezes, bright red, stunned by the interaction. Kobachi quickly walks away, wishing him luck for the next event. The teachers watch from the sidelines, completely baffled. They can't figure out if she is actually cheering or just conducting a field study on human behavior. One teacher notes that her lack of social experience makes her get the physical distance between people subtly wrong. It is like she is trying to play a human character, but hasn't downloaded the latest patch yet. The boys in the class are officially losing it. The one who got the high five asks his friends who she actually is. They vaguely remember her as the gloomy repeat student who never talks to anyone, but the girl standing in front of them now is a total vibe shift. They can't look away. Kobachi moves on to the girls next. She offers advice on salt intake like a sports medic and then pivots into a lecture on ball deformation and inertial resistance during the ball toss game. She caps it off with another high-energy high five. The girls are confused, but the boys are watching her like she is a rare spawn in a video game. To them, she has transformed from a mysterious ghost student into a clumsy, high-spec older sister character. Later, Kobachi sits alone to recharge her social battery. She is proud of herself for trying to survive a life where she does not rely on Saraki for every little thing. She realizes that communication is her biggest hurdle. She even went as far as getting the class roster from the teacher so she can memorize names. She wants to handle things like delivery guys and solicitors on her own, so she stops stealing Saraki's precious college life. A little mental version of Saraki pops into her head to remind her she should probably learn how to wake up on her own first. She shuts that thought down immediately. She decides to focus on the social stuff first, because the morning routine feels like an impossible boss fight. She is trying her best, but the internal struggle is real. Just as Kobachi is spiraling in her own head, a familiar voice cuts through the noise. It is Saraki. He is running toward her, looking like a worried parent who realized their kid forgot their lunchbox. He is actually here because she forgot her official class t-shirt. Kobachi looks around and finally notices that everyone else is in gym wear, while she looks like she is just visiting. Saraki tells her he thought she would feel better if she matched the rest of the class. Kobachi blushes, but she tries to stay firm on her new mission. She tells him to value his own time and stop doing everything for her. Saraki takes the L immediately, apologizing for being a meddling neighbor, but he is not done. He hands her a box and reveals he made her a character bento. Kobachi nearly loses it. She shouts that this is definitely too much meddling, even if the food looks adorable. She asks why he is even here instead of at his university. Saraki casually mentions his classes start late, though he does admit Shinonome is waiting for him to study. At the mention of the rival senpai, Kobachi goes into panic mode. She pushes him away, telling him to go prioritize Shinonome and leave her alone. Once Saraki leaves, the guilt returns. She feels terrible for relying on him for the shirt and the food after promising to be independent. She decides to change in the bathroom to reset her mood, but the universe has other plans. Inside the restroom, she hears the harsh reality of her social standing. A group of girls is gossiping about her. They call her tiring and complain that they have to act nice just because she is a repeat student. They think her sudden energy is weird since she never cared about school spirit before. They agree to just put up with her for one day. Kobachi stands behind the door, feeling like a total outsider. She realizes she really is a burden. She decides it is better to just disappear and study alone, like the teacher suggested, so she doesn't ruin their last sports festival. But as she turns to leave, two girls from her class corner her. They look serious. They call her senpai and ask for a massive favor. Cut to the main field. The announcer's voice booms over the speakers. It is time for the borrowed item race. The crowd goes wild as the announcer introduces the representative for the blue team, Kobachi Koharu. The girl who wanted to hide is suddenly the star of the show. Kobachi stands at the starting line, her brain still trying to process how she got recruited for this. The girl who was supposed to run twisted her ankle, and apparently the entire class is suddenly too busy to help. Kobachi finds this highly suspicious, but she cannot say no to a classmate in need. Another girl from a different class guilt-trips her by saying the blue team's entire victory depends on her. Kobachi realizes she has not actually run in years. Her heart is already doing 120 beats per minute before the race even starts. She tries to convince herself that just showing up is enough, but the high stakes have her sweating. The starter pistol goes off with a loud bang. Kobachi flinches and starts a few seconds late. Everyone else sprints past her like they are in an action movie. She struggles to keep up, her lungs already protesting the sudden cardio. She reaches the first checkpoint and grabs an envelope. She tears it open and reads the prompt, "Find someone who will princess carry you to the finish line." Kobachi stares at the paper as if it were written in a dead language. Her genius-level brain starts to glitch. She questions if she is supposed to be the one doing the carrying, then realizes the prompt implies she is the princess. Her reading comprehension takes a nosedive because the idea of being carried by a random stranger in front of the whole school is a total nightmare. She stands there, frozen, visualizing the mechanics of a princess carry. To a girl who spends all her time with physics and research, this is a social mission impossible. She needs to find a human crane, and she needs to do it before she dies of embarrassment. Kobachi has a sudden light bulb moment. She just needs one pair of strong arms. She sprints toward the audience stands, her social anxiety momentarily replaced by the urge to finish the race. She shouts at the crowd, asking if anyone is willing to princess carry her. The crowd's reaction is not what she expected. Laughter erupts, and people whisper and joke about her request. One boy considers helping, but his girlfriend immediately shuts him down, even cursing Kobachi. Flustered and confused, she wonders why asking for help has caused such a scene. Then she spots Saraki in the crowd and demands to know why he hasn't left for university. He explains family drama delayed him and looks relieved to see her, though clearly confused by the chaotic race. Kobachi hesitates, torn between her vow to be independent and the urgent need to finish. A quick calculation in her mind, pride versus victory, leads her to accept this as an unavoidable exception. She hits Saraki with a high-speed, 2x playback speed explanation of the girl with the twisted ankle, the borrowed item prompt, and her lack of options. Saraki stares at the card in total disbelief. Kobachi, completely missing the romantic or social weight of the request, just thinks the task is logically simple. She is actually offended that he thinks it is easy, considering no one else in the stands would help her. Saraki admits he is genuinely impressed to see her out on the field instead of hiding in a dark classroom. He agrees to help, though he worries that as a non-student, he might be breaking the rules. Kobachi brushes it off with her usual directness. She tells him to just get on with it and start carrying, but as Saraki moves closer, he freezes. The reality of the situation hits him. He hesitates and asks if it is really okay to help her this way. Kobachi looks at him like he is failing a basic math problem. She points out that they live together and he has already helped her plenty of times. She doesn't realize how her words might sound to others. Saraki blushes, apologizing for overthinking it, and asks one last time if she's truly okay. Kobachi just tilts her head, genuinely puzzled by his hesitation. He moves in and tells her to wrap her arms around him. He shakes it off, gives a count of 3, and hoists her into the air. As they begin to move, Kobachi realizes she has never seen the world from this height before. She comments on how unexpectedly tall he is, her voice trailing off as they pick up speed. The crowd goes wild, laughing and cheering for the blue team as the announcer continues to roast whoever wrote the card. Kobachi starts to feel guilty, asking if she is too heavy. Saraki gives the classic hero response, telling her she is super light. When she tries to give him her exact weight in kilograms to correct the data, he shuts her down immediately. Nobody needs the technical specs right now. She starts to notice things she never noticed before. His hands are huge and rough. His body feels solid and completely different from hers. She thinks back to the Saraki she sees every day, the one making omelets and failing to wake her up, and tries to reconcile that absurdity with the strong guy currently carrying her across a field. Her heart rate begins to spike, and it is not from the cardio. Saraki asks her to hold onto his neck a little tighter to make the carry easier. When she pulls herself in, their faces end up inches apart. Both of them turn bright red from the embarrassment of the close contact. He supports her securely as she holds onto his shoulders, and the closeness of the moment feels overwhelming to both of them. The announcer bellows that the blue team couple is in the lead, making the blushing even worse. Saraki, breathing hard from the exertion and the nerves, promises her they are almost at the finish line. He thinks she is just putting on a brave face to survive the embarrassment, but he cannot help but notice how flustered the usually calm genius has become. He knows he needs to finish this fast before his own heart gives out.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.